Hello and welcome to Prairie Pulse. Coming up a little bit later in the show, we'll see a musical performance from David Stoddard. But first, joining me now is Tom Gerhart, the Director of Public Affairs with North Dakota United. Tom, thanks for joining us today.
It's great to be here, John.
As we get started, tell the folks a little bit about yourself.
So I'm a Bismarck, North Dakota native. I spent 23 years in television broadcasting after graduating from the University of North Dakota. And 5 of those years, I guess, were in Minot, and the other 18 were spent in Bismarck. So I've covered the state from corner to corner in terms of news and sports.
Well, now, when did you go over to North Dakota United?
Well, I've been in this position with North Dakota United, Director of Public Affairs, for about 14 months, so it's fairly new. And in the position, I work in the communications department and do a little bit of lobbying and whatever else is asked of me.
Okay, with that said, what is Dakota United?
North Dakota United is the union for K-12 teachers, for higher education and public employees. We have about 11,500 members statewide. We have members in every county in North Dakota, and so we're represented all over the state.
So really, what group and who do you represent exactly?
So K-12 teachers make up the majority of our members, right. Then higher ed, so the university system, those folks can be members, and then public employees. It could be someone who runs the snowplow for the county. It could be someone that works for the tax department. Anybody that's a public employee, we're going to advocate for them at the Capitol during the legislative session, year-round, obviously, really, and communicate their stories and tell the story of the great job that they do. You know, public service, where would we be without it?
Okay. Well, we may get more involved with that with Nick Archuleta at a later date, but let's talk about your education podcast that you have. What is that?
Yeah, that's another one of those duties as assigned. So last fall, sort of out of the blue, Ted Dintersmith, who we'll talk a little bit more about, he's a real advocate for reimagining education all across the United States. And he had been to all 49 states, but had not been to North Dakota as of 2015. And he came and actually spoke here in Fargo at a TEDx talk and found that the collaboration all the way from the governor's office to the North Dakota Department of Public Instruction to North Dakota United and others, the collaborative nature of all of them was so great that he has since spent quite a bit of time here. So this last fall in 2017, he came and spoke with our president, Nick Archuleta, who you mentioned, and our executive director, Chad Oban, and pitched the idea of starting a podcast essentially about reimagining education in North Dakota. So I would say in September, this idea was pitched, and about a month later, we had a podcast recorded and on the air, so to speak. So it was a very quick transition, but it tells the story of education in North Dakota, but more importantly, how that vision is changing.
Well, explain a little bit more. Ted Dintersmith, you mentioned and you talked about there, but can you talk a little bit more about him and a little more in depth of his contribution?
Yeah, so Ted was a venture capitalist that worked out of the Boston area, Cambridge, Massachusetts. So he worked with a lot of folks that were innovating business-wise from startups across the country. And from that, he said he gained this vision of innovation that transferred to education. He started to see how technology and education were intersecting. And he can see, and we can see it happening already, where machines are sort of taking over some of those low-level jobs from people. So his main concern is training young people, teaching young people now for jobs that we simply don't know what they will be, what the future holds. And so reimagining education, I guess, is kind of a way that he looks at it. So he's been very involved in education. He is executive producer of a documentary that several people may have seen. It's been shown here in Fargo and throughout the state, throughout the nation for that matter, called Most Likely to Succeed. And it tells the story of a class in San Diego at High Tech High and how the students in that class, in that school, are transformed throughout a school year. And it's not a typical education that they're receiving. They're not sitting in rows in desks with 50-minute class periods. It's kind of a real wide open learning experience where they build up to a project that they showcase to parents and the public at the end of the school year. And it shows how that way of learning where they're advocating for themselves, they're collaborating in group projects, learning some of those soft skills that maybe we're not getting in school everywhere now, where we're maybe spending too much time memorizing, then 3 months later we don't remember. So these are experiences, authentic learning experiences that these kids carry with them throughout their lives, and they feel that these skill sets that they're learning will make them ready for jobs, those jobs that we don't know exactly what they will be in the future, that they'll be ready to, work in whatever field may be.
Yeah. With that said, I understand with the podcast you partnered with some folks. Can you tell us about who all you're partnering with?
Yeah, well, Ted Dintersmith is the lead on the podcast, and he deserves a lot of credit for getting this going. Another partner is the North Dakota Department of Public Instruction. Prairie Public Education Services is a new partner, and the support that they've provided has been outstanding. And so we have all these collaborators that are helping find story ideas and flesh out this new way of teaching and learning throughout North Dakota.
Yeah. I understand, how did the passage of Senate Bill 2186 help with this?
Well, so Senate Bill 2186 was supported broadly in a bipartisan manner in the last session. And essentially what the bill does is sort of relaxes some of the red tape, you might say, restrictions that we're preventing a little bit maybe from the classroom teacher or a school district to doing maybe the things that they wanted to try, and sort of this sort of innovative idea. So it's kind of referred to as the Innovative Education Bill. And it gives a lot of power back to the local school districts, which we think is really important. North Dakota United was behind this bill. We had a lot of support again. Senator Nicole Poolman was the primary sponsor on the bill. Senator Aaron Oban, who's a North Dakota United member, was highly involved. And we got this bill passed, and the governor now has taken a strong interest in this innovative education arena. He had an Innovative Education Summit last summer. He's got another one coming up in Grand Forks this summer. And so it's sort of opened doors, I think, for teachers and learners to do and try new things in the classroom.
Well, let's talk about some of the guests you've had. In fact, I believe you started with Governor Burgum.
We did. We started with two parts with Governor Burgum. And in the first episode, he talked a lot about how he sees the future of education. And in the second part, I thought it was fun. We let him talk about sort of his upbringing and his family and the impacts that he had. He had a lot of stories about his children and dropping them off at school. And one thing that I found really interesting is he said the thing that he asked them every day, or prompted them to do every day, was to ask good questions. And he thought that that was the foundation of a good education. So the first two episodes were with Governor Burgum, and since then we've visited schools across the state. We've also visited with partners nationally as well.
Well, talk a little bit more about that. I mean, as a host, you're the host of the podcast.
Right.
How long is a typical podcast?
The idea initially was to make them about 15 minutes long. So the thought was, whether you're in a rural area or in a metro area in North Dakota, that by the time you commute to work and home, you'd be able to listen to a podcast. I have found it difficult, I'll say, to hit that 15-minute mark. So none of them have gone longer than a half hour, but a lot of them have been in the 20-minute range, but pretty easily digestible in the drive to work and the drive home.
Well, in public radio, we talk about driveway moments, so I guess you're hoping some people will sit in the driveway or in the parking lot listening to the rest of it. But what have you learned so far as you've done this?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I spent 23 years as a television broadcaster, so I was accustomed to learning new things and asking questions and meeting people, and having children in public schools throughout the last 20 years or so. I thought I had a good grasp on what was happening in education, and I just threw all that out the window. I've learned so much, and I'm certainly no expert. The teachers, the folks that are there on the ground every day deserve all the credit, the students that are doing the learning. But I see myself as a conduit between the public and what's actually happening in education. And before the legislative session and before the start of this podcast, I really had no idea of the innovative things that have been happening for years, by the way. This isn't something that just started with the passage of the bill, but the things that teachers are doing every day in classrooms is simply amazing.
Well, now, I heard you mention other duties as assigned. So when you came over to North Dakota United, was this something that was in the works or so? Okay.
No, and that was what made it a lot of fun this last fall, is literally, 1 month this wasn't on the radar, and then a month later we had a podcast, out there for everyone to listen to. And so that the first 5 weeks or so were very interesting as we pieced together equipment and figured out what we were doing. So that was a learning process on top of really finding out what's happening across the state. And we're just scratched the surface.
Okay. Well, maybe try to get into a little more specifics. Some schools across the state are really sort of taking the lead and changing the way they're delivering education. Can you talk about what they're doing?
Yeah, close to here, Northern Cass is a school that has really taken the lead, and their superintendent, Corey Steiner, is an advocate for innovative education. And so that was one of the podcasts that you can listen to right now, where we spent some time at Northern Cass School. And it's hard to explain exactly what they're doing, but they're in year one of a 3-year process to do away with grade levels. And ultimately, they'll grade on a 1, 2, 3, 4 scale and not an A to F scale. And what they want to do is really personalize learning. So let's say you're really good at algebra, I'm not. You'll be able to move on to other things where I can spend more time getting it right, actually learning. And then, the competency-based learning, where you'll prove the learning and know, so the teacher will know that you'll understand what's happening. And they've started a Jaguar Academy in a school within a school, where I think over 30 students on their own have signed up, and they're essentially learning on their own. Now, there are a lot of benchmarks and check-ins and things that they have to do, but it allows students to really advocate for themselves. It's more of a college setting within a high school. And the further along you are in the traditional grade levels, the more freedom you have to make the choices as to what you're learning or how you're learning. And so they call it really authentic learning experiences, where maybe you're using math and science and history to tell a story of, say, the D-Day invasion as an example, and bringing multi-disciplines together for one learning experience. So that's one example. I was in Oaks, North Dakota, for instance, and they've implemented something that's called flexible modular scheduling. Again, we're accustomed to the 50-minute class periods, maybe 7 class periods a day. The bell rings, you go on, everyone's learning the same history lesson, everyone's learning the same algebra lesson. Where in a flex mod schedule, they break these mods up into 20-minute segments. And so again, if I need more time with algebra, I can spend more time there. If you need less time with algebra, you can spend less time there, move on to more difficult lessons. Perhaps you could get an internship in town where you have hands-on learning. There's project-based learning, where there's a project that people collaborate on. And those are the types of skills that Ted Dintersmith and others feel are essential for the future, for the jobs of the future.
Mm-hmm. So where can we find these podcasts, and when are they made available?
Each Tuesday, we release a new podcast. There are 14 podcasts available right now. Again, they start with Governor Burgum. They include visits, as of this point, to Legacy High School in Bismarck, to Oaks High School, Garrison High School. We've visited with Senator Nicole Poolman, Senator Aaron Oban, Department of Public Instruction Superintendent Kirsten Basler are among the guests, but it's available everywhere you can find your podcast. So one place that it will always be easy to find is at our website, ndunited.org, but it's also on iTunes, Google Play. You can find it on Spreaker, SoundCloud, places that I hadn't heard of 6 months ago.
So they might not have been around 6 months ago either.
It's widely available.
Okay. With that, what's been the reaction so far to this?
There's been a lot of positive reaction. And the part that I enjoy the most is really getting out into these schools and these communities and visiting with the teachers, hearing students that are excited about these new learning experiences, talking to administration and how they're working with residents in their communities, with school boards to get buy-in to try new things. And so that's been extraordinarily interesting and energizing to see how North Dakota really is taking the lead in reimagining education, teaching our students for the future that, again, is really unknown at this point.
Yeah. Where do you see education going in the next 5 to 10 years? I know you got a crystal ball somewhere.
I do.
And yeah, more research like this, or what are you seeing?
Yeah,
what are you thinking?
You know, that Senate Bill 2186 we talked about really opened the door, and so you know, plans need to be submitted from school districts to the Department of Public Instruction to be okayed. But you know, Senator Nicole Pullman said that she just hopes it relaxes restrictions and gives classroom teachers more, you know, flexibility to do what it is they want to do with their own students. I mean, who knows a classroom better than the teacher, and who knows the students better than the teacher that's with them each and every day. So I would, you know, being immersed in this world as I have been for 4 or 5 months now, I would be surprised if 5 years from now that we don't have more of these flex mod schedules in high schools, if there's not more personalized learning, if these soft skills that we talked about, the collaboration, the self-advocacy, the communication that you need, it's certainly not a passive learning environment. It's a very active learning environment where you're learning to communicate with other people and work through disagreements to arrive, you know, at the best end. So I would say 5 years from now, I know the hope of some of these leaders in schools like Northern Cass and Oaks and Legacy and Garrison, they really hope that education is transformed and we're not doing the things we've been essentially doing for the past century.
Mm-hmm. How important is it to train students ahead of time so that they have the right skills for the workforce, and maybe they choose the right college or path that suits them?
Well, and I think that's the thing, is college the right decision for everyone? You know, there's technical school, there's the military. That's a great question, and that's one really interesting thing that I found. You know, North Dakota students don't have any trouble getting into college. Where the trouble exists is once they graduate, they often don't know what they want to do, and they have a large amount of debt. I think we're at $1.4, $1.5 trillion in student loan debt nationwide, significant issue. So again, going back to these new models of education, if you can find a passion area, something that you're passionate about as a student with that flexibility in your schedule, you know, you can find things that you're passionate about, try things out, maybe get that internship or two where you find out, I really love this, I don't really like this. And the hope is that by the time you're out of college now, you know what it is you want to do, or at least have a better idea.
Yeah, Tom, sorry we're out of time. So if people want more information, where can they go?
ndunited.org.
Okay. Tom, thanks for joining us today.
Pleasure to be here.
Stay tuned for more. David Stoddard from Fergus Falls, Minnesota, is a teacher and songwriter who has been performing throughout the U.S. for years. Now he has a passion for house concerts because of the intimate atmosphere, and his music is quirky and sometimes humorous.
There's 3 to the measure, and a quarter gets 1. You could say it in rhythm, it's just 1, 2, 3, 1, and it's easy to hear it. It's truth rendered in sound. It's an easy surrender, and it's paradise found. It's 3/4 time, that's a comfortable groove. It's the way we exist, it's the way that we move. Parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme, and the music music of love is in 3/4 time. It's harder for children 'cause it's so seldom heard. In popular music, it's rarely preferred. But for grown-ups, it's easy. It's the essence of art. Something primeval, it's the sound of your heart. And it's 3/4 time, that's a comfortable groove. It's the way we exist, it's just the way that we move. Parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme, and the music of love is in 3/4 time. There was a time that I was 4 to the bar, but you gotta keep moving, you just know how we are. There are difficult changes, impossible rhymes, but my memories of you, they're all 3/4 time. They're all 3/4 time. That's a comfortable groove. It's the waltz of existence. It's the way that we move. Parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme, and the music of love is in 3/4 time.
Most of my songs aren't about me. They're sort of characters, and I try to find out where that character's coming from. I try to get a snapshot of a feeling, sort of an emotional moment sometimes is what I call it, and you try to explore that with either metaphor or examples. There's a song that's called Dakota Girl. It was about somebody that loves winter. And incidentally, it was booted out of a contest because they thought no one would ever believe that such a thing could be possible.
Dakota girl loves wintertime, and she longs to hear the wind around the door. And she'll stay up till the fire is out just to feel her icy feet upon the hardwood floor. She cherishes this time alone, and she'll wait until the sun is gone and never feel the need to light the light. And it's windy, and it's cold, and it's dark, and she's alone, and she's never felt as grounded as she feels tonight. And outside, the wind becomes a stream that slithers in that gap between her clothes, tickling on her hidden skin like water trickling down until her legs are froze. With open arms, she starts to float. She'll welcome with an open coat to twirl around and take the coolness in. And she's opened all the mysteries out, floating on the slightest breeze, and winter is the water that she's floating in. And some people have a passion that their summer-loving sisters cannot know. Summer lovers cannot understand the beauty of all the diamonds on the coldest snow. And the wind will make her tears to come, and for a moment when her cheeks are numb, the stars are brighter than she's ever seen. And the way out there is just black as tar, clear out to the furthest star, and she's closer now to heaven than she's ever been. Dakota girl loves wintertime, and she longs to hear the wind around the door. And she'll stay up till the fire is out just to feel her icy feet upon the hardwood floor.
Well, that's all we have on Prairie Pulse for this week. But as always, thanks for watching.
Funding for Minnesota Legacy programs are provided by a grant from the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund, with money from the vote of the people of Minnesota on November 4th, 2008, and by the members of Prairie Public.